for thank you for voting for your new book, and here it is, Jeremy Strong, and it's called My Granny's Great Escape. I hope you're up for laughing your socks off, as it says at the top of the book here. So we're going to start with chapter 1 today. I think there's only about 6 or 7 chapters. Yes, 7 chapters, so it's not going to take us very long to get through this book, but I hope you enjoy it. So on the very first page, it does introduce us to the characters. I hope you can see that. So it says, "This is me, Nicholas, and my family." That's my granny in the middle. So here's Granny. "Why does my dad look so cross?" Because this is Granny's new boyfriend. Here he is. I think I'm going to enjoy this book. So chapter 1 then. Granny and the boy next door. Ugh! I don't believe it. My granny's in love. She's at least 5,000 years old. Well, 62 really. And she's gone all soppy about this man next door. "He's such a handsome boy," she told me. Boy? He's older than she is. Do you know what she did next? She whispered into my left ear, "Do you think he fancies me, Nicholas?" I tried to escape, but she clung on to me. "You've gone very red, Nicholas. You're not embarrassed by your granny, are you?" Embarrassed? I wanted to crawl into a hole and hide. Come to think of it, I wanted Granny to crawl into a hole and hide. I'd better give you more details. Next door to us live a fussy couple called Mr. and Mrs. Tugg. Mr. Tugg doesn't get on very well with us. He's always complaining about something, and Dad keeps calling Mr. Tugg the Martian, as if he's some kind of alien. Here is Mr. Tugg's general list of complaints. Number 1, my dad. Mr. Tugg says that my dad is unhelpful, thoughtless, and lowers the tone of the neighbourhood. Our garden. Mr. Tugg says people should not be allowed to build dinosaurs in their garden. Dad tried to make me a slide in the shape of a T-Rex, but he never finished it. Mr. Tugg also says our lawn lowers the tone of the neighbourhood because Dad doesn't cut it properly. I've seen Mr. Tugg trimming his lawn with nail scissors. Singing. My dad's got a karaoke machine and he loves singing with it, very loudly. Mr. Tugg doesn't like my dad singing on his karaoke machine. He says it gives him a headache. Our car. Mr. Tugg says our car is noisy. True. Smelly. True again. Doesn't work properly. Also true. And lowers the tone of the neighbourhood. Possibly. As you can see, Mr. Tugg is very concerned about the neighbourhood. He is even trying to set up one of those neighbourhood watch groups, and he wanted Mum and Dad to help. He came round the other morning to speak to them. He stood on the doorstep looking very important, with a deerstalker hat on his head and a pair of binoculars hanging round his neck. In other words, Mr. Tugg thought he looked important. My dad thought he looked like a bit of a twit. "Are you going bird watching, Mr. Tugg?" asked Dad cheerfully. "Of course not. This is for my neighbourhood watch scheme." "Neighbourhood watch?" echoed Mum. "What's that?" Dad's eyes lit up. "It must be when all the neighbours watch." "It sounds fascinating. Who starts first? Shall we come round and watch you, Mr. Tugg, or are you going to watch us? Are we allowed to hide? You shut your eyes and count to 100 while we run away and hide." "Don't be so ridiculous," growled Mr. Tugg, and his little moustache began twitching. "It's not like that at all. Neighbourhood watch means that we keep a lookout for burglars and car thieves and vandals. Why do you think I've got my binoculars, a notebook and a whistle?" Dad looked at me in astonishment. "Phew! Did you hear that, Nicholas? Mr. Tugg has got a notebook and a whistle." "I wouldn't like to meet him in a dark alley." Even Mum had to hide a smile. It's nothing to laugh at, snapped Mr. Tugg. There's too much crime about these days. I've just bought a new car and I don't want it stolen. So I've started up a neighbourhood watch scheme. Everyone else thinks it's a good idea. It is a good idea, Mr. Tugg, Mum offered politely. Is your new car nice? Mr. Tugg shot an icy glance at all three of us. I hadn't been planning on buying a new car, but if you remember, I found an alligator in the last one. I wasn't expecting to find an alligator in my car, and I drove off the road. I think I better explain. Dad bought a pet alligator home a couple of months ago. We called it Crunch Bag, but it kept escaping and one day it slipped into the back of Mr. Tugg's car. He went out for a drive with his wife when Crunch Bag popped his head up and opened its jaws. Poor Mr. Tugg crashed into a tree. Now he's got a new car and Crunch Bag has gone to live in a nearby zoo. Mr. Tugg said he was planning a meeting about the neighbourhood watch scheme and Dad said he would go. I don't want to be burgled either, he pointed out. The thieves might steal my karaoke machine. Mr. Tugg bristled at once, which was exactly what Dad intended. Quite frankly, robbers would be doing everyone a great service if they did steal your karaoke machine, he snapped. I don't think that's very neighbourly of you, Mr. Tugg, said Dad, trying to look immensely hurt. Nevertheless, I shall come to your meeting, but I insist on being given a free notebook and a whistle. How my dad managed to keep a straight face, I don't know. Mum couldn't. She disappeared giggling into the front room. Everyone who joins will get a notebook and whistle, announced Mr. Tugg importantly. I already have a small supply laid in. Now, there's one other thing I should mention while I'm here. Our grass is too long, interrupted Dad. No. It's the wrong colour. What's the wrong colour? Asked Mr. Tugg, whose logical brain had now been thoroughly derailed by Dad's off-the-wall questions. I don't know, said Dad. Everything, probably. What are you talking about? I don't know, admitted Dad with a shrug. What are you talking about? I was about to say that my father is coming to live with us. Good heavens, cried Dad. I didn't know Martians had fathers. If you were funny, I'd laugh, retorted Mr. Tugg. My mother died a year ago and he's been getting lonely on his own, living in a big house. He's moving in with us. Dad scratched his head. Why are you telling us? Mr. Tugg shuffled his feet and I could have sworn he blushed. No particular reason. I thought I'd better mention it in case you think he's a burglar or something. Mr. Tugg tapped his deer stalker. That's the sort of thing we have to look out for. Anyway, my father moves in tomorrow. Have you put two and two together yet? Brilliant, isn't it? Mr. Tugg's father is my granny's boy next door. But you don't know the half of it yet. Mr. Tugg, Senior, is 65 and he's called Lancelot, although he's hardly a knight in shining armour and he doesn't ride a horse. He rides a big motorbike and a sidecar. In fact, he's a Hell's Angel. He has long grey hair tied back in a ponytail and he wears leather trousers and a leather jacket with Mad, Bad and Arthritic written in silver studs on the back. No wonder Mr. Tugg looked so nervous when he was telling us about his father. There's a picture of Mr. Tugg's dad. Not at all what you'd expect, is it, from what we know about Mr. Tugg so far. So there's the introduction to our new story. Chapter 2 is called 1 or 2 Bombshells. So I'm guessing Granny and Mr. Tugg's dad will get up to some mischief in the next chapter. I can't wait to find out. That's made me giggle today, so I think we're going to enjoy this book. Enjoy the rest of your day, Year 4, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye now.